Hey guys, thanks for joining me. And if you like what you see, please subscribe. Hello and welcome to Sharp Ends. I am going to show you today some knife maintenance on a shadow. I'm also going to change its scales out. It currently is wearing these Micarta Python scales, which I actually quite like. And when they're gussied up with a little bit of oil or spit, they're very nice and subtle. I have 4 TRM knives, Three River Manufacturing knives right now. I have their full-size Atom, which has these fancy pants titanium scales, which cost just as much as a knife because the machining on it is extraordinarily nice. And then I have the Shadow, which I was able to score kind of on titanium. Posted a video of this a couple of weeks ago. I'm really surprised that I get more views on that because this is a really cool knife. And then I have the Neutron, which is the smaller sized knife, and I have these koi scales on there. Can't remember the name of the people who make these koi, but they're nice, and I like the way that they are, right? So TRM has now titanium scales for 3 of their knives. They have them for the Atom and for the mid-size Neutron, and they have it for the small Nerd. This is the second version of their Nerd. It's called the Holy Nerd because they added a hole here for easier opening. And I like these Python scales, but the other day on their website, they had a 20% off all scales, and they had some scales on there, some new scales for the Nerd, and I thought I would go ahead and give it a try. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this package, see what's in here. Oh yeah. So a couple of things here. So these are going to be the scales for this Nerd. I'm going to open this up here. So one thing that TRM does, which I really like, is that when you buy a set of their titanium scales, it comes with an upgraded clip, titanium clip. Now, this is their standard clip here, and this is the upgraded titanium clip. Deep carry. They're both deep carry, but I don't know, just like it. So it comes with a new clip, and also it comes with new hardware, just in case you need more hardware. That's always awesome. And then we're going to open this up and see what we have in here. And then inside here we have the new scales with their dog logo on here, which is their own dog, their actual dog, their logo. And then we've got these scales in here. Look how shiny and beautiful. And look at that milling pattern on there. So nicely done. And then it comes with new hardware also for your scales. So if you don't know, the scales are very easy to swap on TRM knives, and I will show you why. I'm going to disassemble this completely, and I am going to clean it as well and then put it back together. So I'm also, while I'm doing this, going to show you some of the tools that I use. One of the things that I use is I really like this iFixit driver. It has this part spins at the top. So once you break a screw loose, you can kind of hold it with your finger here and then use your hands to get the rest of it out. Your fingers to get it the rest of the way out. So take this off. I'm gonna put these screws over here. Now this mat was from Smoky Mountain Knife Works. I got it for free. You can usually get a mat for free if you wait long enough when you're making purchases. One of the knife companies will say, "Hey, we're going to give you this knife for free if you make a purchase." So that's it. That's all you need to do. And now I could just go ahead and pop this on, and that's what it's going to end up looking like, right? I do like that. On the clip side, it's a little bit more difficult, if you will, and that is you have to take off 4 screws, or I guess 3 screws instead of 2, because you got to take the clip off too. So I'm taking off the old clip, putting that aside, and then I'm taking off this last scale Now, this is not the set of scales that this came with. I can't remember what this Nerd came with, but I quickly changed over to the Python because I liked this Python feel, and I do like the feel of Micarta too. I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to get $40 off of these when I saw the 20% off. So I went ahead and did it. It'd been a while since I had bought anything knife related, and I thought, okay. So here we have the liners, and this is a liner lock, which works by when you push this over, when you push this little piece of metal over, it disengages the back of the lock and comes out. Now this knife is a little stiff right now, which tells me that it's not oiled right now. I've been using it a lot. It's been in my pocket. You know, I usually like to, I actually don't think I've ever disassembled this knife fully. I like to actually wear most knives. Now this isn't always true unless it comes with a problem. But if the knife is perfectly centered, like it is right now, and it's from a reputable manufacturer, USA made, I usually don't pull it open and clean it immediately. I like to wear in the bearings a little bit before I take it apart. These Torx is T6 for that, and then for the pivot, which is a larger one, which I like, is, what is this, a T10. So I like Weehaw as well. I like this fatter handled stubby guy for bigger things or things that I know that are going to be, I mean, this is for more torque, right? I get more leverage on this bigger handle. So I am now going to loosen up the pivot and pull that out. I like to arrange my bolts and the things that make up the knife in order. So what I'll do is I'll put my pivot here, and then I go down from the pivot out the screws so that I can put the screws in the same holes. Now to push this out, this nut, I don't want to damage the threads here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this smaller Weehaw bit, and I'm just going to push down. Sometimes I also like to use this tool, this clock tool. I got a set of cheap clock tools that came with a lot of very useful tools from Huhu, H-U-H-U. It was just a kit. Now, even if you aren't into watches, I suggest you get this because it comes with a lot of very cool little tools to help you take apart either watches or other small things. Like this I could actually use on some of my smaller engines. You know, these little tools here are just very useful for working on flashlights or sunglasses or what have you. And one of the coolest tools, or the tools that I use all the time, is this dude right here. Can't remember the proper name for it, but it's basically just a little poker. Anyway, back to the knife. I am going to now push this pivot bolt all the way through, and now that's out. This is only can go in one side, and it has a little notch cut out here, so I know which way it goes, right? Now I need to take out the screws. The screws are tapped from one side with spacers, so I just need to take them out from one side. It's not one of those where it has a screw going in each side into the liners. So, and again, we have T6 here. I don't like it when knives, and again, I'm going to take this screw out and then I'm going to put it one over. So now I know it goes pivot, and then it's going this next screw, and then this next screw. And now I don't want to lose. All right. Just give me a second. All right. I don't like the way that that's behaving, so I'm going to use more torque. That's really in there a lot. So I'm going to get a T6, and I'm going to use my Weehaw instead. T7, T5, and of course, I'm not sure where my T6 is. That is awesome. By awesome, I mean not awesome. Let's see what I have over here. Let's see, maybe, nope. Oh, let's check the back here. All right, so the other cool thing about this Weehaw is it comes with some bits itself. So here's a T8, and here is a T6. Okay, so I have my T6. Great. I didn't get the official iFixit bits, and this bit here for this T6 is basically just crap now, and I need to get rid of it because it's going to end up stripping one of my screws. All right, so now I've got this nicer, yeah, and now it comes right out. All right, good. Now this knife is ready to fall apart with parts flying everywhere, because the spacers are going to want to come out now that the screws are out. And what I want to do is preserve which spacer goes with which screw. It actually doesn't honestly matter, but I just like doing that. And then I'm going to take this out, and you can see it has some schmutz on there. I'm going to clean that off in a minute. And then, so now this is out. And I'm also going to preserve which side, I'm going to try to remember which side these phosphor bronze bearings are on the blade. And you can see it's a little dirty here. We're going to clean that all up and oil it up. All right, so what I'm going to do is if this is on this side, and here we are. Oops, I just dropped that one.
Hello.
Hello.
Can I show you all the punky wood that was all under the wood thing? You want that for the outdoor bonfire, probably, right?
Yeah. Unless, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Where should I put it?
All right, and I'm back. We talked about punky wood, me and my wife, and now that the punky wood situation is over with, we're going to continue. I'm going to show you real fast what I'm working with my tool setup here. I have a 3-tier tool thing that pulls out, and in here I have old scales that I'm keeping in here. I've got drivers. Got this little tool here. This is great. This is actually for replacing screens on iPads and phones. Sploogers, I can't remember the name of it. Look at my Ultim Marlin spike. Love this guy. Totally impractical, but made really nicely. And then the rest of my tools, and I've got my oils in here, and locks tight, jeweler's loop, gunny oil for stropping, and different kinds of lubrication and cleaning stuff. All right, so back over here. So the next thing that I need to do is clean all of this up. And what I'm going to use for that is I'm going to use alcohol and Q-tips. And so I have gotten these little containers here, and I put the Q-tip in there, and the alcohol is just going to clean all of this gunk up. This little part right here is the detent, and that creates the friction before you open it so you can snap it. And I'm cleaning up all this old oil. This pin right here will fall out, so you need to be careful. I'm going to leave it in and hope that it just stays there. And a little bit more oil. And I'm going to clean out the inside of the pivot too. Get all this dust out. You can see it's starting to get dirty. All right, and now the blade itself. Hard to reach places. And the inside, this is where that pin, that lock pin goes. Interesting design. I've only seen this on TRM. A lot of other knife companies do it differently, so that's cool to see. TRM is totally manufactured in America. I believe even their hardware, screws, offsets, everything is made in America. The steel is made in America. I know that for certain. And I'm going to clean off these screws a little bit because they have some old Loctite on them. And then the phosphor bronze bearings, I'm going to take a little bit more and clean those off. And I'm going to keep track of which side of the phosphor bronze was next to the blade and which one was next to the lining. All right, there we go. So now those are clean. So now I need to remember how to put this all back together, right? The other thing I need to do is get the oils that I'm going to need out for this, and I'm going to need the Loctite as well. So here's my Loctite. Here are my oils. I have heavy and I have light. The regular knife pivot lube, I'm going to use, well, let's see, how am I going to want to do this? So first, I've cleaned this. I'm going to put this in the side of the blade where it goes, which is the, right there. Then I'm going to put a drop of oil around here and a little bit on the pivot itself. And then I am going to take the washer that goes with that, and I am going to put it on. And then on top of the phosphor bronze, I'm going to put a little bit more grease. And then the blade. Now, the blade itself doesn't really need any because I've put it on those faces. And you can see where there's some wear patterns here, where the phosphor bronze washers are. That's good. And then I'm going to put this in. Now, one thing that I am going to do before I do this is this pivot here. I'm going to use the heavy on that. The heavy sticks to things a little bit better. It doesn't run out of things. When you've got a compression joint, by that I mean, hold on. When you have a compression, you have two pieces of metal next to each other that are compressed, like the washer and the side of a knife. Using the light is the right thing to do. However, when you're got something that's running in a track or where the detent is, it's nicer to use the heavy lube because it's going to stick to that more when it's not touching the other surface of something. So when it's free of that and it's not, when metal to metal is always touching, use the light. When metal to metal isn't always touching and it's going to come out at some point or move away from the other surface, then it's better to use the heavy. All right. That's in now. And I'm going to use a little bit more light here for putting on the other washer. And I'm going to put this washer on and this on. Lots of grease. And then the next thing I want to do is so one of the tricky parts is going to be lining up the washers. All right, so getting ahead of myself. First things first, I'm going to take some of the Loctite. I'm going to take a little bit on my little poker tool here, and I'm not going to put it on the threads. I'm going to put it on the inside of the nut. It's easier to do this way. Seems a little counterintuitive, but it's better than putting it on the threads. I don't know why I say that other than it's what TRM recommends. And it's something it's the way that I've always done it myself, if I can.
Did you have a tarp for me?
Yeah, I got a tarp for you. All right, tarp acquired. Moving on. I've got to hurry this up before she wants me to go out there and work. So here we go. I'm gonna put these screws through here. I've put the Loctite on there. I'm now gonna put the spacers on the correct way. Put the spacers here. And now those screws are ready to go in. I just want to be careful putting this on. And I also want to line up the pivot correctly so that the notch is in the right area. Come on. Get some of that tension off. Maybe somewhere right around there. Let's see if I can get this the first time. Oh, almost, let's see. So I'm just going to start these screws. I'm not going to actually tighten them down. I need some play in order to get this all lined up correctly. What I'm trying to do is get this notch that's in the pivot lined up perfectly with the side here so that it all comes together. And that can be a little tricky. Yep, all right. So I'm gonna loosen these back up. Hopefully I don't lose any of the spacers. And I need to turn this just a little bit. Oh, it's so close. Just go in your hole. Don't you know that that's your home? All right. I got it. All right. I'm going to tighten that up just a little bit more. These back spacer screws. And then I'm going to take the pivot. And now I don't need to put Loctite on it because I have already done that part. I am going to take the larger Torx T10, start that up. So my fingers here, I'm using it to hold everything together right now. All right, switch out the bit on my WeHa driver, the T10, try to get that a little tighter. Now it looks like the pivot, this little pin isn't quite in all the way. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. I finally got it. I had to kind of close it to get it to all line up. And now I'm looking at the centering. Centering's way off. That's to be expected until I get this put up. So here are some secrets. If I've done everything right, I should be able to tighten the pivot bolt and get it to center up pretty well all by itself. However, the pivot bolt isn't wanting to sit correctly. This is a very futzy part. I'm going to take the screw out again and see. Yeah, so the pivot is no longer lined up with a proper hole, with the hole properly. So I need to get some gription on this. I'm just going to pause it for 1 second. Apparently I had a snafu. I thought I had pressed record before, and I've jumped over some steps. So the steps that I jumped over was I finally got this seated correctly. And the way that I was able to turn it and get it worked in is I basically grabbed the pivot, the back of the pivot, and I held it very carefully with these pliers, and I turned it and pushed at the same time till I got that notch to seat correctly. And then I tightened everything up. The other thing that I missed recording was telling you how I would center this, and that is basically I tightened it up, and I realized that it would all work out, and that I didn't need to do any of my tricks. My tricks would be that I loosen up everything inside. I loosen up the 2 backspacer bolts, and I would loosen up the 2 backspacer bolts and the pivot bolt. I'd force some piece of paper in there on the one side where I needed to get, move it over, and I'd jam it in there, push it to the side where it needs to move to, and then tighten the backspacer and the pivot back up really tight, and then take the piece of paper out and then adjust the pivot and see if it pushes it over to center. 9 times out of 10, that is what works. Sometimes though, you need to take it, you need to loosen it and twist the knife, literally one direction or the other, the direction that you need to move the knife, and then tighten it back down, the pivot, and that will also work. These are all things that you can find on the FAQ of TRM website. I then also talked about how I am now putting on the scales, right? And how It looks like they actually give you, the replacement screws aren't spares, but this is a rounded head here on this, all for the old scale screw, and this new one is actually flat and looks nicer with the titanium. So I'm going to put those in, these new screws in here. And yeah, and now I also put thread lock inside of the threads, so I don't put inside of the female part of the screw. I put the thread lock. I don't put it on the other side. And now I am going to put this other scale on. That's interesting. Huh. All right, so here we got this guy. This is going to be the side where the clip goes. So I'm going to do the front one here. And then these guys go in here. So this is sometimes hard to get in. I usually have a pair of needle nose pliers that I use, but I was using them on another project inside, so they're not here. So I'm going to just drop it in there like a pro, as if I know what I am doing. I just realized I thought that they had given me all new scale screws, but really those screws were just for the I believe that they're just for the clip, and they are not for the scales, although I'm going to do half and half. I'm going to keep that flat head on the back of this show side and put this rounded head one in the front because it has a deeper inset. It's going to look nicer that way. Then I'm going to take this other flat head. Oopa. No, didn't get lucky that time. And I got lucky. All right, cool. And now I'm going to put this here. And hopefully we'll finish this up. I got that screw started. So again, I like to get the screw started before I tighten down anything so that I can get a final kind of spacer in here. And this is the new clip that TRM sent and went together beautifully. Let's check out the spacing on the blade. The blade is a little bit on the show side. So I am going to, then that usually means, let's see what the action's like. That usually means that you need to tighten up the bolt a little bit, and that'll push it over toward the lock side. It does feel a little loose, so now it's perfectly centered. Let's see what the action's like. The action's pretty good. See if I can flick it. Oh yeah. Because this knife is so small and my hands are big, it's sometimes hard for me to flick it properly. Okay. Close that before I spill it. So there you go. There is the TRM NERD with titanium scales, new clip. Oh yeah. This is the old one. And now this is the new one. And so this will match this. So now for my fancy dress outfit, I can have my primary and my fifth pocket together, and they're matching and beautiful. Look at that, very sexy, all American made. Oh yeah, action on this Atom is incredible. And yeah, I like this milled out part here for the access to the lock. Middle flick is easy. thumb flick. I've always got to do a little wrist action on this to get it to work properly, but it's easy. And now I just need to sharpen this bad boy up and we're good to go. So that was how to take apart a TRM Nerd and a short look at some of my other tools. I'll do more disassembly videos in the future. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for joining me at Sharp Ends, and let me know what you think in the comments. As always, have a good week.